Okay, so that leaves us 10 minutes anyway before the next panel, but the next panel is the last panel, so we could stretch that into a few extra minutes, I'm sure, if there are questions that go beyond the 10 minutes.
With reference to your discussion of post-traumatic stress disorder, you gave a list of symptoms, but I was wondering about a sense of absurdity, a sense that life has become meaningless. Is that one of the symptoms, or is that just under the larger category of depression?
Yeah, that would be under the larger category of depression, numbness. You would often individuals, and they react completely different to the traumatic stress that does occur, but you see disassociations, and you see individuals who you could be in a meeting with, and you're engaging in conversation, and then it just appears like they are not in the room. And as a matter of fact, they'll describe the experience as not being in the room with you for a period of time, that they'll be out of body experience looking in at the counseling session going on and viewing it as a third party. So these phenomenons happen quite regularly.
It's quite interesting because I'm looking at this from the point of view of an English prof, and there's a whole archive of literature that is focused on absurdity and absurdism. So I'm thinking, maybe people have already experienced that and continue to do so.
I'm not sure if anyone's looked into a scenario whereby after the apocalypse, humanity may have discovered a medical control for zombieism. I'm referring specifically to a BBC production called, I believe it was In the Flesh, a series in which humans and zombies live side by side, but with very strict controls. And how does that fit into rebuilding?
Say that again. What do we think about a TV show in which zombies and humans live together?
Not necessarily the TV show, but the possibility of that scenario, which largely doesn't seem to be addressed in any of the...
Zombies don't exist.
Oh, yes, truly, they do in our nightmares. So...
But I guess I don't understand the premise of the question. How could one possibly comment on that?
I'm asking you to comment. Okay, I'll clarify, or I'll specify it then. Why do we not see more literature or films in which a coexistence of zombies and humans exists?
Yes, now that's a question. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Carl?
Well, I think if they did, then they would represent our society quite well, because what I've been talking about is how large portions of the population are already zombified, but they seem to coexist with other portions of the population. So it's not really that problematic. There are movies like Shaun of the Dead, which is a satire. It's funny, but towards the end, the protagonist's best friend becomes a zombie, and he gets chained up and treated like a family pet. And so they coexist. It is with strict controls. They chain him up around the neck because he would probably eat his hosts. But yeah, it could be done.
I'm thinking more along the lines of the South African science fiction film. It's called Zone 9. Where you would have to you have to quarantine them. Obviously, I mean they're very, very. I mean, how do you quarantine zombies? Or in Whitehead's Zone 1, you have this wall. They're trying to retake Lower Manhattan, and so they build a wall around 14th Street, and they're going to keep them out. It fails. I don't know. I suppose it depends in your imagination. What are the potencies of the zombies that you're trying to coexist with? To what degree can they be, domesticated, quarantined, and so on before they break out? That's I mean, it depends. And so you do, as Carl said, you have a social political metaphor there. What do you do with the undesirable others? What do you do with the Indians at the pipeline? Well, that's right. I don't know. What do you do with them? Goodness, I don't know.
You build a wall, a big wall.
Yeah. Sorry, that's
That brings it into 21st century reality, right? So,
right.
As a metaphor, it resonates.
Actually, makes me think more of AIDS and the early fear with AIDS and catching AIDS. There was a movie.
Ebola.
Yeah, there was a movie just a year or so ago that I've seen. I can't think of the name, where people were sick, but there was a treatment, except they were running out of the treatment. And again, so many people were keeping it secret that they were infected. But yeah, it sort of does remind me of AIDS and Ebola and the sort of threat amongst us at any time.
Hi, I'm just thinking about Amanda's slide deck in respect to your talk on trauma and a couple of things that you pointed out that you really didn't have time to get into. Basically, the roles that we see women having in all of these as being the weaker sex and taking on, you know, the maternal type roles, and the fact that we don't see like people with disabilities and different things in all of these genre films. And just by the stats, I'm kind of curious about two things. We know there's a high percentage of the population with disabilities, especially mental health disabilities right now anyways. I always assumed based on the medication angle and different things that basically anything happens, people with disabilities are the first to die anyways, but just in terms of traumatic stress, and I was wondering if there really is a bias about roles, recovery, manifestation, and in respect to people with existing mental health issues, are they going to be more predispositioned to going into severe trauma, or is that any indicator?
There's a few questions in there. Answer the last one there about predisposition. We do know that every individual is wired slightly different, and they are predisposed to having different reactions to different events. It is quite well known that you and I could be walking down the street together. A traumatic event happens, a single traumatic event happens, and we could respond completely different to it. You may react completely fine and like it was nothing, and it may be completely debilitating to me. This is derived from all of our experiences that we have gained throughout our entire life, and our resiliency that we have also learned through our interactions, and some genetics as well. So yes, we all are slightly predisposed to having a specific reaction. Whether the mentally ill individuals would have more of a challenging time during the zombie apocalypse or not, well, I think that would really depend on the individual. There are many individuals out there who I know that have diagnosed mental illness who are way more creative and way more imaginative than myself or others that I know. So they may actually survive and may be able to thrive in such an environment because of their unique skills. Mental health, to me, is not necessarily a debilitating or a disability, but opportunity at times.
If you flip that over and you think about it, what happens when the disabled become zombies, then it in a way becomes an advantage because they're equal to everybody else. There's no discrimination. They eat flesh just like everybody else. You know, it's not a problem. So it's in a peculiar kind of symbolic, literary way, you know, metaphoric way. They gain something that they don't have in this world. So that maybe that's one of the things one of the reasons zombie culture is so popular, because it is egalitarian, the way it's represented.
One of the things I've noticed on the Walking Dead is their first group, or just out of Atlanta group, there were families. It was very family oriented. So Rick's group, there was Andrea and her sister, there were other families, even Merle and Daryl. So there was already this sort of family basis. And then the others that sort of got adopted into the group, how many times do they refer to each other as family? Like Rick has said, Daryl's his brother now. And they've all gone through various times when they've each systematically lost it. Rick lost it for a while, Sasha, Maggie, anytime they've experienced huge losses, and they've, again, had enough people around them to allow them to work through their grief. So that's sort of been a theme throughout The Walking Dead. Makes you wonder if some of the other groups that we have seen would have been as amenable to helping people work through.